All right, firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Stuart Taylor. I am first and foremost, a member of Crossover. Secondly, I am a resident of Maryland. And I feel like I sit there. And did anyone in the back want to come up and sit up front?
No.
Okay.
It's long.
That's fine.
I'll sit up front.
We've got a whole front row over here where we are welcoming. I won't bite you, I promise. So, I am just to give you a little background on me, and before I start with me, let me start with you. I want to salute every one of you in this room for showing up and being here.
Thank you.
Because not everyone takes the initiative to improve themselves. A lot of people complain about, I can't do this, I can't do that, and then there are other people that actually step up to the plate and make it happen. So I salute you, and I ask all of you to give yourselves a round of applause for just doing it. 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, that's good. That's good. I promise not to keep you more than 5 hours. We should wrap up somewhere between 11:30 and noon, just to let you know. I am here afterwards, so if people have individual questions. This is a small group, so we can probably do a little more interaction than I normally do in my larger groups. But I'll be here afterwards to answer questions. Everyone that is here gets a copy of my book. I'm the author of a book called How to Ace a Job Interview. And a new car!
Oprah Stuart Taylor.
You all are too much. Give me a couple of years. We'll keep both alive. Okay, so what I will be doing at the end, in addition to answering any questions, is I will be signing your book. So don't run off, get a book. Pastor Tyne's going to give you a book. Try not to run out before I get to sign that. Okay? So we're going to do a couple of things here. I want to walk you through and make sure everyone's got one of these, correct?
Yes.
Gentleman just walked in. Pastor Tyne will hook you up. In here is an agenda, which I rarely stick to, but it's in there. A bookmark, which is you can use however you like. A sheet called 7 Fundamentals and a Greatest Strengths worksheet. Don't worry about that. I'll walk you through what we need. Just want to make sure you know what's in here. So I'm the president of Top Performers Recruitment, and I started my business in 1998. Prior to that, I was a manager, so I hired people into my company. I'm giving you the evolution of Top Performers. And I used recruiters. Is everyone aware of what a recruiter is and what a recruiter does? A good recruiter pre-screens people for the employer, and so they send you really great candidates that fit what you're looking for. So I worked with recruiters, so I'm getting pre-screened qualified candidates for my openings. Despite this, 9 out of 10 of the people that I interviewed, I did not move on to a second interview. These are pre-screened candidates, vetted, sent to me. 9 out of 10 didn't make it past the first interview. I would say 10 out of 10 probably thought they did a great job, and they left thinking, oh, that's a great interview with Mr. Taylor, and no callback. The tragedy of this is, every one of them I felt was qualified for the job. Every single one of them that showed up. So why didn't I move them forward? Generally speaking, because of something fairly minute that they either did do that they shouldn't have done, or didn't do that they should have done. Show up a minute late. 1 minute. Something they did do, but they shouldn't have done. You realize if you show up a minute late on an interview, most likely you're done. Even if they talk to you for 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes or an hour. You've shown them that you were not valuable enough, they were not valuable enough for you to get there on time. That's a disqualifier. Typos on resumes. You're coming for one of the most important, significant events of your life, a new job, and you're telling me you couldn't make sure that everything was spelled correctly on your resume? Even one little typo can set you apart. And here's the thing, in interviewing, there's first place, you get the job, and there's lose. Everyone else loses. So it doesn't have to be a big differentiation between first place and second place and third place. Only one person gets the job. And so there are all these little tiny minute things that most people aren't even aware they're doing. Some people didn't know my name. Some people had not researched my company. Some people didn't take any notes for an hour. I can't remember anything if I didn't take any notes for an hour. I mean, I remember pieces, but... So there are things that you're communicating to an interviewer that you may not even be aware that you're communicating to an interviewer. So my philosophy is this: if anyone in this room, or outside this room, has been on more than one interview for any job and didn't get it, there's probably something you can do better. And it could be something tiny. So just to kind of illustrate that point, imagine I am a potential business partner with you. You all are entrepreneurs. And you're seeking out Stuart Taylor, Top Performers, which is the name of my company, as your business partner. We meet for weeks. You're very impressed. You're impressed with the way I present myself. You're impressed with my credentials. You're impressed with my references. You're very impressed with me. And we've talked and we've discussed the business plans. We're like, this looks like it's a go, right? Now, you may not think something as little as a pen could throw off an interview. But keep in mind, image and what you're presenting with that image is important. And so imagine we get down to the time when we are going to sign the contract. You're going to sign the contract with me. You're partnering with me for your future business. You really love everything you've learned about me. And I get ready to sign the contract, and I pull out my pen to do my... What are your thoughts at that moment?
Childish.
What are we doing? What in the world? How did we miss this? It's a pen. It's a pen. But it would make you question the entire business deal. All the weeks or months of pre-planning, a pen, it doesn't have to be this crazy pen, but even something as little as a pen can set you apart from first to second. If you want to present a professional image, present a professional. You can get a pen for $10. You can get a nice looking pen for $5. So if you want to present a professional image, make sure from head to toe, top to bottom, little to big, that you are presenting that professional image, which I'm not doing holding this bunny, every minute, every second that you get involved in the interview process. Speaking of that, does anyone know when the interview process starts?
As soon as you enter the,
Phone call.
as soon as you enter the office, that's when it
Okay,
starts.
okay.
Or come into the-
Anyone else? That's good?
Job application,
Job application. So what do you mean job application?
when you complete it.
When you complete it. Your interview process starts the moment you hit send, sending your resume through, or the moment you, if you're showing up, the moment you enter. But most of us apply online prior to an interview. So that interview starts as soon, the interview process starts as soon as your resume, the word is out on the street that you want a job. Why? Because from any minute, from that time you started that process, any minute, someone can call you, someone could call you in, someone could see you, someone could look at your LinkedIn profile or your Facebook page. And if all those things aren't representing professionalism prior to hitting send, that little thing, and you'll never know they looked at your Facebook page. You'll never know they looked at your LinkedIn. Well, you might, because there's some that will show you that you did. But you won't know why you didn't get any calls. But you've got that picture of you at the beach, you know, being all crazy on your Facebook page, and someone's like, that doesn't look like the image I want in my company. And that was just you having fun. You're trying to show them, it's okay to have a friendly, upbeat, smiling picture, but again, you want the image to present you well. Little and big. So, I want to start off with just kind of an analogy. Well, I guess you all are here because you want to improve your interviewing skills. Is that correct?
Yeah.
My goal for this seminar is that you walk away not only armed to ace your next interview, but also that you are armed just to present yourself in life.
Amen.
From a confidence standpoint, my goal is for every one of you to walk out of here with your head held high, knowing your value, and knowing what you have to offer next employer or the world. So just imagine this. Imagine you are the fastest person in the world. No questions, not maybe you're the fastest, you're the fastest. There's no doubt. You know it, everybody knows. You're the fastest person in the world. If you're the fastest person in the world, Would you sit at home, locked away in the house, eating a pizza, watching TV? No. Probably not. You'd probably be out racing. And you'd probably race every chance you get. Matter of fact, you'd probably go up to people on the street, hey, you want to race? You want to race? What are you doing? You want to race? Grandma, want to race? Hey. You would be racing because you know you'd win. So if you knew you were going to win, you'd be out there doing it. Like, I know I've got this value. I know I've got this strength. Let me go do it. Let me use it, right?
Right.
Okay, so what if you didn't know you were the fastest person in the world? You might sit at home eating pizza, sitting on the sofa, doing nothing. But what if you were the fastest person in the world and you didn't know it? Like, you're really the fastest person in the world, but you don't know it. Wouldn't that be a shame that you aren't racing? You may not even be running. You may even be uncomfortable running. You may think, oh, I don't want to do that. I might not win. But you're the fastest person in the world, but you just don't know it. Wouldn't that be a shame if you had all that value to present, where you would win? If you just stepped in, you would win. But you don't know you have it. Well, what's the point of all this? The point of all this is everything starts with God and starts with you. Meaning, if you don't know your own value and your own strengths and what you have to present, you cannot present that to anyone else because you don't know it. And by contrast, if you do know your own value, you're telling everybody. And if you're not verbalizing it, you're showing it in your behavior, in your confidence, in what you do, and what you choose to step into, in the races you choose to enter. So it is critical. It's critical. And this is part of what I hope for all of you to walk out of here with today, is to walk out with an understanding of what is my value, what is my worth, and how can I capitalize on that. Make sense? Now, in this packet, you will see a little sheet like this, and it says How to Ace a Job Interview. It's called The 7 Fundamentals. I want everyone to pull that out. Has everyone got it? Okay. The top of that sheet, it says right below How to Ace a Job Interview, it says your dream job. Now I want you to close your eyes. Don't fall asleep. Close your eyes. And I want you to imagine, I really want you to close your eyes and I want you to imagine this. Just close your eyes and imagine your dream job. Not necessarily the job you're looking for right now, your dream job. Whatever that is. Imagine the job that gives you the resources to do whatever you want, to provide for your family, to take vacations, to go out to restaurants, that you go in, you're excited about Monday mornings. You go into work, you're fulfilled. You're serving a purpose and you're loving it. Imagine that. Imagine all that it can do. It'll help you pay off your bills. It'll bless you just abundantly. Your dream job. Okay, you can open your eyes. Now imagine that you get a phone call. And it's the dream job people call. So they call you and they say, we've got an interview next week. We'd love to have you in. Your resume looks great. So you get ready for the dream job. You start to prepare. You get excited. I mean, you're really excited. It's like, wow, 1 week and here it is. It's right, finally, here it is. Pay off my bills. I can do all the things that I want to do. 3 days. You're preparing. You're really feeling prepared. 2 days. Day of the interview. You are excited. It's like, you can taste it. It's right here. Your dream job is right here. Day of the interview. You have the interview. You walk out of there like a champion. You're like, yes! Okay. Now you can feel your dream job. It's right there, right? Right? All right. I want you just to hold your dream job up. Just hold it up. It's right there. It is right there. Hold it up like you mean it. This is my job. This is it. This is it. Now imagine. It's right there. And somebody snatches that job right out from underneath.
Oh, wow.
How do you feel?
Not good.
Not good. Not good. So, let me explain several reasons why that's not good. Firstly, that happens all the time. Dream jobs may or may never come up again. So, and maybe I'm preaching to the choir because you all showed up, but you cannot afford not to get your dream job. It may not come up till next week, next month, or ever. And so we talked about the differences between a winning interview and I didn't get the job, and it can be this much. It can be 1 minute we talked about, right? So you have got to make sure you're covered, and you understand all the little nuances that can make a difference between getting that job and not. Now, on the back of this page, just draw a dot, just a little dot. Okay? Now, draw a circle around that dot. Keep drawing a circle. Just draw it and 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 draw it. The dot represents our goals. The circle represents what we often do. We just drive around that goal and around it and around it and around it. But the goal's right here. And let me just give you a little math to help you understand the significance of getting the job when you interview for it. Particularly if you're not working right now. Just for the sake of argument, there are 52 weeks in a year. So imagine you're going for a job that's $52,000 a year. That's the base salary, just for the sake of argument. Each week that you go without landing that job, it costs you $1,000. You leave $1,000 on the table. Every week you don't get a job. I hear people all the time say, oh, I got an interview next week. If that doesn't go well, I got another one next month. That's $4,000. But if you're going for $104,000, that's $8,000. I don't know about you guys, but I can't afford to leave $8,000 on the table. Or $4, or $1.
Right.
So it helps you understand that it's not okay just to interview. You know, you're not only spending time and energy and resources to get ready and get dressed and drive over there and gas. And it's significant. It's significant. So just to kind of put that in perspective. I want to share with you all several concepts that I think will change your entire perspective on interviewing and perhaps life as well, that most people do not think of. Is something I call the dating analogy, which I talk about in my book. Who in this room has ever in their life dated? Okay, pretty much everyone. Which is why I use the dating analogy. Because everybody, whether you're currently married or not, you've dated at some point in your life. And you dated your spouse if you're currently married. So everyone can relate to dating. Now, the analogy is this, and get this, because this will help you, it's a theme in the book, and it will help you just in terms of navigating through an interview. The dynamic between the interviewer, which would be me if I were interviewing you all, and the interviewee, which is you all, is virtually the exact same as two people dating with the intention of getting married. The dynamic between two people interviewing is virtually the exact same as that of two people looking to get married. Now, before you all throw me out of here and say, Stuart, you're in the wrong session, how is that possible? How is dating and interviewing, how are they the same? Volunteers. How are they possibly the same?
Well, they're, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're both, you're asking questions.
You're asking questions, so you're
Yeah,
learning.
So you're learning the person.
Okay. Very good. What else? Yes?
You're trying to get to know each other and see if you're a perfect fit.
You want to make a perfect fit. Okay. Does that mean you're perfect?
No.
Just perfect fit. There's a difference.
Right.
There's a big difference. Right. Okay.
You're looking to build something together.
Build something together.
That's good.
Very good. Very good. Yes.
You usually make a determination about, an impression about the person when you first meet.
First impressions. We talked about that with the pen. Okay. Yes, sir.
I was gonna say long-term commitment.
Long-term commitment. What else? Yes.
I always hear about the whole thing about qualifying. Is a qualifying being done?
Qualifying meaning, are they the right person for me? Is that what you mean?
The interviewer is an assessment of qualifying people for the position.
Okay. And when you're dating someone, you're kind of qualifying.
Qualifying if they got what you're looking for.
Okay. Do they have what we're looking for? Okay. What else? How about communication? that important?
Yes.
Anyone have issues ever in their life communicating with someone else?
What you talking about?
Not me, yeah. What you talking about, Willis? It's frustrating. And when you have those things, you're like, I don't know if I can communicate like this for the rest of my life,
Right, right.
right? Well, an employer's thinking the same thing. What else? Would you want to marry someone that you didn't trust?
Wow.
Nope.
No.
So trust, maybe? What else? You want to date someone that you have nothing in common with? Would that be fun? Nothing. Okay. So these are a few things. I mean, trust, you mentioned some very good ones. You want to learn about each other. You want to make sure it's a perfect fit. Trust, communication, first impressions. First impression can make or break the date. And it could be a great person and make a bad first impression. And guess what? You never give them a second chance.
Right.
They could be a great person. Just like the candidates I talked about, 10 out of 10 could have been great hires. They never got a second chance.
I guess the value system is important too.
Values?
Should be valued.
Hygiene?
Height, okay, that's very good. Hygiene is very good. If you see someone that's just like, ooh,
That's true.
right?
True.
Okay. You know, I always think of this, you know, I'm going to share this story because it's funny, but I'm embarrassed to share it, but it's true. My cousin and I we used to travel together on vacations all the time. So we went away to some Caribbean island, and we were at a restaurant. And there was a lady that we met. We were in our 20s, and so we started talking to her. And conversation was great. She was very attractive. We were having fun, and she smiled. And she had a big old piece of broccoli in her teeth. Now, we were 22 years old. That was the end of it. It was just like, oh, ugh. She didn't know.
Right.
You can take that, you can fix that, right?
Right.
It was over. But that's how people form impressions. You form impressions very quickly, right or wrong.
Yeah.
And interviewers are people just like we are. And they form impressions very quickly. So just FYI, one thing to do before you step into an interview, check yourself in the mirror, make sure you
Amen.
right. No sunglasses on your head, you know. Tie is straight. Everything is where it should be, right? Okay. So basically, everything minus the romance is the same. That dynamic, that interaction between the interviewer and you is basically the same. Even the level of excitement. If you don't think an interviewer that's interviewing you wants you to be the person to get that job, you're wrong. They're not just sitting there to waste their time. They're ecstatic when they find the right person. Just like with dating, you're ecstatic when you find the right person. And you don't go on to a date thinking, I hope this date stinks.
Oh my God.
Right? Neither does an interview. They go on with the anticipation and excitement that I hope I find the one today that can marry into my company. It's the same thing. The feelings of excitement and disappointment are the same. I'm sure some of you have interviewed people. I've interviewed thousands of people. I can tell you, when you're interviewing someone and it tanks, especially when you're excited about it, especially when you're like, wow, I heard great things about this person. The person's resume sounds great, looks great. They sounded great on the phone. You bring them in. It's a heart drop. Your heart drops. It's like, wow, I really thought that was going to be great. And so that's what we experience when we're dating. And my reason for saying all this is because beyond this seminar, beyond the book, when you are on your interview and you're faced with a question or a situation that you don't understand, what is that person asking you? What are they looking for? I don't get that. I never studied that question. I don't know what's going on. Imagine that it's a date. And imagine if you asked your date that question, what you would need to hear. And you'll have your answer. 9 out of 10 times, you'll have your exact answer of how to answer that question. So it's an invaluable concept to remember so that you understand why they're reacting certain ways and how to help them react better. Whatever you would need from a date, minus the romance again, although you might want to kiss the interviewer at the end of your interview, they need. If you would be disappointed on a date with something, they would be disappointed on an interview. Make sense? Any questions? Okay, that's one concept. Second concept, how many people in here have any form of interview anxiety? I do too, and I teach interview. So it's okay to have that. Who else has interview anxiety?
The interview,
The interviewer. Why in the world would an interviewer have interview anxiety? Don't know, right? Sounded good though. You're right. We all have fears, right? An interviewer, for the sake of argument, is the manager of a company. They're the gateway to a company, right? So behind them is someone that pays their paycheck, a company that if they do well, they get more money, or if they're in sales, they get more commission if the people they bring in are successful, and less if the people they bring in are failures. Raises and promotions can be contingent upon your judgment. So if I hire you into my company, and you're a disaster, who does that reflect on? What does my boss think of me? I could be written up. I could not get a raise. I could be fired. You'd be fired for poor judgment. So now you don't see interviewers up there shaking in their boots. It's a different type of fear, but it's fear. And you have to understand this because you treat someone that's fearful very differently than you treat someone that's coming at you like this, right? And so interviewers will sometimes come at you like this. So they look like they're attacking you. Let me ask you something. Dating analogy. Have you ever been burnt in a relationship? Raise all of that. Okay, what happens when you get into the next relationship right after you've been burnt from the last one? You're not only cautious, but you give that person a hard way to go, right? They get beat up on the areas that you got beat up on because you don't want that to happen to you again. Fair? I mean,
That's true.
so if someone cheated on you and now you're dating the next, and they were always late. Now you meet someone else and they're late. What's your fear? They're cheating on me. And so they're not necessarily cheating on you, they're just late. But your fear is real. You treat them or beat them up verbally based on your fear. Now, what's their best response? To fight back? Not really. Their best response is to, let me stop here. If you saw a baby in a field, little baby, laying in a field, crying its eyes out, no one else is around, what do you do? What do you do?
Go to that baby.
You go to the baby. Do you run the other way? No. Baby is crying because it's fearful.
Yeah.
So what do you do to the baby when you go there? Just stare at it? What do you do? You pick it up, and what else do you do?
Caress.
You soothe it. You reassure it. Right? Why? Because reassurance conquers fear. Very simple. Reassurance conquers fear. So when you see a fearful baby, you don't run the other way. You run to it. And you reassure it. If you have a fearful spouse or significant other that's beating you up in an area, you don't run from it. You reassure. I'm sorry I was late, honey. I'll make sure I call you next time. You may have to do that multiple times, but eventually that fear that you're cheating like the last person goes away because you're reassuring them. And reassurance conquers fear. Plain and simple. An interviewer. Who's intimidated by a bulldog type interviewer? You know, tell me about this. What about this job? Why did you make this change? Why are you unemployed? It can be fearful for us, right? Change that. Change your mindset. Change your perspective. The interviewer that is the most in your face is the most fearful. He's been burnt. She's been burnt in that very area that they're beating you up on. How do you manage that? Reassurance. So when you're in an interview and someone's coming down on you hard, rather than shrink back and be fearful, like, oh my goodness, I was afraid this was going to happen. Oh my God. You reassure that person. And I will share with you things that you do to help reassure any interviewer and eliminate their fears. And let me share with you this. Because of the weight of fear, on an interview, the person that interviewer hires, brings into his or her company, is the person that's eliminated all of his or her fears. You eliminate the interviewer's fears, you get the job. I'm not afraid you'll succeed. I'm not afraid you're going to make me an embarrassment. I'm not afraid you're going to, lose money from me. I'm not. You addressed all my fears. You addressed all my fears. I hire you. So keep that in mind, that you're not the only one that's anxious, and actually this can help begin to eliminate your anxiety, and respond very differently on an interview situation. And yes.
Will you address those of us who are, say, over 50, sitting in front of someone interviewing us who's 25, who's 35, how to reassure them that you're not, coming and trying to be a mom or dad or try to take over?
Carefully, yes, I'll address that now. And I may table some questions depending on how we're doing time-wise, and answer them at the end or separately at the end, but that's a very good question. So, a lot of times, just more senior, tenured people will get the response of, "We really like you, but you're overqualified." That usually means, you're too old, which is illegal, so they can't say that. But they do it all the time. Or, "I'm afraid of you." Fear. "I'm afraid you know more than I know. I'm afraid you're going to show me up. I'm afraid you're going to take my job. So you can't come in. Ever. You didn't do anything wrong." So how do you reassure? Let's try it. How could she possibly reassure somebody that is insecure or thinks they know everything with someone that's more senior and perhaps more skilled and even more knowledgeable than the person that's hiring you? What can we do to help minimize that fear?
Well, I guess in a question that might come up, you have to pre-think it, and, I guess in terms of, when you meet the interviewer, try to address it in some way of a question that comes up. How you get along with people or something like that, that you're collaborative, you have a collaborative approach and you're willing to learn, something like that, that even though you might have more experience, that you're willing to learn, and you've worked in diverse groups, and diversity covers age and
This is very, very good.
And all of that, so you probably tailor an answer within the question that you're being asked.
You're basically letting them know, I'm not a threat to you.
Right, yeah.
I'm coachable.
Yes.
That's a really good,
Absolutely.
I'm coachable.
Right.
I actively learn from my managers.
Yes.
And if you have an assignment or a task or something, here's what I'll do, and then you give examples of what you've done.
Exactly.
And you don't mention age or anything like that, but I love the way you put that, very diverse group. So you're helping to minimize and reduce that person's fear, which is what's driving their thought process. And again, they probably will never articulate that, but you can figure that out. It's like, wow, there's something, I'm saying all the right things, but there's something here. And so the more reassurance you can provide, the better. And coachable is very good also because it lets them know that in business, you're the subordinate, and you know it. You're not trying to take over, even if you are trying to take over their job or get there. It makes them comfortable that, you know what, I can work with you. And share things that you've done and brought to the company and the value that you've added without overdoing it. If let's just say you've got 5 degrees and this person doesn't, and you're just talking about you're scaring them.
Yeah.
Now if you're talking to someone with 5 degrees or someone that doesn't have 5 degrees but they love the fact that then talk about it.
Right.
But again, like dating analogy, just modify what you're discussing based on the person you're discussing it with. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, where were we?
Interview anxiety.
Interview anxiety. Okay, so I want to jump to, on that, if you flip back from your circle dot on the back page, the Hot Ace Job Interview, 7 Fundamentals. I'm going to link in the dating analogy as we talk, kind of help get you used to it and it'll help illustrate some things, hopefully very clearly. Has anyone ever been on a date with someone that didn't know what they wanted? Like, you know what you want. You want to get married, and you're out with a date with somebody, and they're clueless. You know, they're just not there. Has anyone ever had that situation? You don't have to raise your hands, but it's frustrating, right? You know what you want, and they're all over the board. They're just not focused on your objectives. So, if you're really sure about what you want, and this person isn't sure about what they want, chances are, fairly short order, you'll move on to somebody that does know. And the other side of it is, it's really important that if someone does know what they want, that what they want is you, if you're the person sitting on the other side of the table. So if you're having a date, and the person says, you know, you say, hey, you know, what are you looking for? And you say, well, I'm looking for, let's say you're a guy, and your date says, you know, I'm looking for someone that's 6'7", plays basketball, you know, really athletic, and you're 5'2". You know, you never played basketball in your life, and you don't, you know, get off your chair. They know what they want, it's just not you. And if you're on a date, you're not going to feel very good about that. So whether they know what they want and it's not you, or they don't know what they want and you're in front of them, it's uncomfortable. It's like, oh, okay, this isn't a fit. It is the exact same thing on an interview. I cannot tell you how many people show up on interviews and they are so across the board with their skills and gifts and everything that aren't relevant to the job at hand, that you have lost the interviewer before you even know it. So when they say, what are you looking for? You have to have an answer that lines up with what they offer. Right?
Yes.
And if it doesn't, if it's over here, or even sometimes even slightly over here, they want somebody that's, as the young lady said in the back, perfect fit for them. Not a perfect human being, but a perfect fit for what they have. So I play the piano, for example. I'm also was a sales guy, and I'm a recruiter, an interview coach. So if I were on an interview to work for a major recruiting firm that was not my own, and I'm sitting there talking about how well I play the piano, or let's say I have my real estate license. Oh yeah, top real estate. You know, I can sell these real estate homes, and you know, I've written up in better houses and gardens and whatever. I'm telling them I'm gifted, but not in what they are doing. And they're like, well then go find that job, because I didn't hear anything that lines up with what we're offering. So the first fundamental, and there are 7 of them, is knowledge of what you want. It is critically important that you know what you want. Now, this is not a limiting thing. You can want everything. It doesn't matter what you want. I mean, you can want everything. But when you're on an interview for a particular job, you need to make sure what you're sharing with them lines up with that job. I'm not going to not like playing piano because I'm interviewing for a recruitment position. I'm just not, I may mention it as a hobby, but that's not going to be my fundamental thing, focus. They are, and what their position offers. Make sense? Okay. Number 2. You have to have an understanding of the job that you're interviewing for. Now, a question that comes up on interviews very often, and sadly is not answered very well too often, is, what do you know about our company? You show up, dressed up, driven an hour to get to an interview, sitting on the interview, and they say, what do you know about our company? You know how many people come up with crickets on that one? Like, you're based on this address, like, because your navigation took you here. Now, let me share something with you. From the time I were to walk, if I had my phone on, and I walked from here to the door on the other side of the room, which would take me about 5 seconds, I could pull up any company in the world in 5 seconds. Any company in the world. And I could read something about it before I hit that door. So if I show up on an interview and they say, what do you know about our company? And I don't know anything about the company, I've just told them, you weren't worth 5 seconds of my time. That's how much I want this job. So you got to understand where they're coming from and how they're perceiving you. And these are easy fixes. You know, and the more you know, the better, obviously. You don't necessarily have to know everything. Let me ask you, what are some good resources in terms of learning about a company?
Google.
Google? Good, okay. What else?
Newspaper is always good.
Newspaper can be good,
Advertisement.
okay.
Their annual reports.
Annual reports can give you good information. What else? Where can you go? Who can you talk to?
Other employees.
Other employees? Now, what's good about talking to current employees?
You'll understand the culture of the organization.
And give you culture?
It's a good
Okay.
organization to work for from their perspective.
What's the downside of talking to current employees?
Maybe the current
Huh? Wait.
biased.
But they could be biased, okay. What else?
Unhappy.
They could be unhappy. And that's not necessarily a downside, because dating analogy. None of us are perfect. You just want someone that's perfect for you that you can deal with, right? None of us are perfect, and no company is perfect. But you want to know the good and the bad so you can make a decision of, can I survive and thrive in this environment? So I want to learn the good and the bad. That doesn't mean I learn it and say, I'm not going to interview with you, or I hold it against them. It just means now I understand some of the challenges so I can share how I can face those challenges. So, very good. Employees can also be, here's the potential, and by the way, employees is great. All the suggestions you mentioned are great. So I encourage talking to employees wherever you can. Employees can be biased because they are working for the company. Employees may be afraid to say something negative about the company because they're working for the company. Employee could have been fired for good or bad reasons, and they may trash the company when it was them, not the company. But that's why you want to talk to multiple people, so you can get an overall perspective of, okay, and take things with a grain of salt and just put it in your mental arsenal of, okay, this is, painting a picture of the environment. Did someone have a question? Okay, how else can you find out about a company? Who else can you talk to? Yes.
Oh, talk to them.
Anything.
I was just saying, I would be interested in how they treat the employees as far as benefits,
Okay.
and profit sharing.
Okay. Good. Good.
Things like that.
Okay.
Are they environmentally friendly?
Okay. Things like that. What else? What's a source that can give you information that would most likely give you completely unbiased information?
Better Business Bureau.
Better Business Bureau can help you if they're current and up to date. Yes.
When you are looking for work and you go to job sites, they list all the companies on the job sites, like career announcement.
Okay.
They're good sources.
So it'll give you an idea of what they're doing.
You may not even know a
activity.
company, but you can find all the companies you feel you want by doing that.
Okay. Yes.
Is one of them Yelp could be an option?
Yelp could be an option. Glassdoor is another one that could be an option. That's real people giving feedback. Yes?
The company itself has most of that.
Okay, company itself, now what's good and bad about company information from the company, even the website?
All the things you said.
They're gonna spin it.
All good. You got no blemishes, no flaws. Come on in, baby. Everything is great. The customers. Customers will tell on you in a minute. And they'll also say what's great. So wherever you can reach out to companies' customers, you can get a lot of really invaluable information. And again, this is not necessarily, it may be, but it's not necessarily to tell you don't interview there. It's to give you a realistic perspective. You're getting married into the company. Don't you want to know about the person you're marrying, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, so you can manage through it? Okay? It is very important to understand the job for several reasons, and we're gonna get into that as well. The next thing was going to bring us to an exercise, and will help you again beyond just your interviewing. I think the next exercise will help you in life, really truly help you feel comfortable, more secure, and confident in who you are and what you're doing. For any job, you have got to have the necessary background and experience and skill set for that job. Would you agree? Okay. Now we go back to the initial example I gave of the fastest person in the world that doesn't know they have that. And here's your dream job, you're excited about it, You show up, but you don't know how you're the best person for it. And it goes away. You don't know your worth. You've got to know yourself. And the more you know about yourself, you will find that everyone in here is the fastest person in the world at something. Multiple something. Multiple something. And each of you have skills and gifts that I don't have, that your neighbor doesn't have, that other candidates for jobs don't have. And I'll bet you, at least a good percentage of them, you have no idea. You don't even think anything of it. And I want to give a couple of examples. I had an employee when I was a manager. Her name was Melanie. And Melanie was the most well-organized human being I've ever seen. I mean, it's almost scary. So I was her manager. So one day, Melanie came up to me and she's like, "Here, Stuart." She hands me like a report. I'm like, I look at it, I read it, I'm like, "What's this?" She said, "Well, this is our third quarter report that you need." This was like first quarter, right? And so it had all the information that I would have requested 6 months later. Complete, perfect. So she was so far ahead of the game. She had stuff that I was like, "Oh yeah, we do have this. It's due in 5 or 6 months," and she had completed it, right? So stop there. So I was doing Melanie's performance evaluation a couple months later, and the way I did performance evaluations is I would ask my employees, "Where do you think you rank in this area?" And then I would tell them where I thought they were. So I asked Melanie, I said, we came to planning and organizing and administrative efficiency. And I said, "Melanie, where do you think you rank?" She said, "Oh, about average." I said, "Average?" She was like, "Yeah." I said, "Melanie, you handed me like the third quarter report, the first quarter, complete, perfect." She's like, "Oh, everybody does that." I said, "Melanie, nobody does that." I didn't even know we had it too, and I'm your manager. Yeah, nobody does that. Now, here's my point. She had a skill that was so far and away above anybody I've ever known to this day. And if she went on an interview, she would never mention that stream.
Wow, that's good.
She would never mention it. Because she assumes everybody's doing it.
Wow.
And guess what? She might not get the job because she didn't mention it. And someone else that's nowhere near as good as she is said, "One of my strengths is administrative efficiency and planning and organizing," and they give an example. They're like, "Great, well, Melanie didn't give an example, so she probably doesn't have that." So it is so important that you know you, so that you, A, can feel confident about you, and B, you can present yourself effectively to somebody else. I want to give another example, and this is a personal example for me. I was a district sales manager, and I was doing very well. I was the #1 manager in my region, so I got a call from a recruiter, and the recruiter said, "I've got a director position for you, and the company's going to call you in a few minutes." I was like, "Great." I'm still working. I didn't even stop what I was doing. I get the call. I'm interviewing with the manager of the position. The interview's going great. We talked for like 45 minutes. It was terrific. She was asking me questions. I was like, boom, boom, boom. Felt really good about it, right? So then she says to me, now mind you, I did not prepare anything. Hadn't been interviewing for years. And she said, "So where do you rank?" I'm a sales manager, right? That's important. And I drew a blank. And I said, "I'm not sure. Let me get back to you on that one." So I answered every other question she had, except for that. It was like cutting the rope to a helium balloon. It just took off in a way. It was gone. I could feel her just like she disconnected. And I was trying to get her back, like, and she was gone. As soon as I couldn't answer that question, she checked out. Why? Because she's like, "If you don't know where you rank, you obviously rank very poorly because you're not telling me. Otherwise you would know." I hung up the phone with her. I'm just like, I can't believe I just lost that. I had it. And it dawned on me, I had just won the President's Club Award. It's the company's top award. I was #1 manager. And I couldn't think of that at the time I needed. That's pretty significant bloop, right? If I could forget that at the moment I needed it, anybody can forget anything, certainly things that are less significant.
Absolutely.
And you cannot afford to forget that, because I couldn't all of a sudden call her back and say, oh, I just remembered, I'm the number one person. Oh yeah, okay, sure, okay. If you call us again, I'm like, blocked, you know, it's like, no. You don't get redos most of the time. And so you've got to know you. You've got to know what you're bringing. If I had answered that one question, I'm sure I would have had that job. So it's just one question, one fraction of a second, one little thing. So it is very important that you understand yourself. Matter of fact, the two things that I would say are most important on the interview is this one, knowing yourself, and two, understanding what the job requirements are. Now that's not one of the fundamentals. I'm going to kind of, the necessary background is what we're on, number 3. But those are the two things that are most important. So I want us to take, do anyone need a few minute break? Let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll start with the exercise. So what's that clock say, 11?
It'll be 11:05.
Okay, 11:05.
To them. So again, you asked me.
Did you address how not to make them feel insecure about losing their own job to you?
But thank you.
No. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, with that key word, coachable. How coachable are you? Because you have to get used to the rehearsal, which I don't like to do. That's what I find.
Okay, everybody ready?
Yeah, rehearsal, like a play.
Okay. We're on fundamental rule number 3, which is having the necessary background, experience, and skill set. So I want you all to stop again and think of the dream job that you wrote down. You didn't write that down? All right.
Step one. So should we visualize?
So you don't have to visualize. You already did the visualization thing. By the way, visualization is very good. Just imagine you got the job, the dream job that you want. But write down in that little space on your 7 fundamentals your dream job. Okay, just write that down. And by the way, by a show of hands, if you wish, I will not call you out. Who had a hard time thinking of their dream job? Like, what is my dream job? Okay. What's fundamental rule number 1?
Knowledge of what you want.
Think about that.
Okay.
Think about
That's
that.
good. That's right there.
So that you do know. Because what's that saying? You can't get there if you don't know where you're going. I think I made that up, but that's the news. So,
But that's out.
but think about that because it's really important that you have focus. And you can have multiple dream jobs, just FYI. And various strengths may be suited towards different jobs. But think about what you want. So everyone write down their dream job. Now I want you to think of your dream job that you have. And in terms of that dream job, I want you to think of what is required. What strength do I have? What do I possess that job requires? So it could be sales, it could be leadership, it could be technical acumen, it could be clinical acumen, it could be computer skills, it could be tenacity, perseverance, it could be anything. So I want you to think of 3 strengths that you possess that would make you an exceptional fit in that dream job. Take a few minutes to write those 3 down. In the left-hand column of your sheet, it says greatest strength. So 1, 2, 3. Just write down whatever that greatest strength is. It could be one word, doesn't have to be anything long. Just what are 3, not necessarily all the strengths, what are 3 top strengths that you require to do well in that job? ability to multitask, communication, listening, planning and organizing. Good with children, counseling. Relentless commitment. How are we doing? Need more time? Good? Just three, no, just three. Now, I will have you do the rest of these later, not here for the sake of time. But you remember how I said it's important that you know who you are? This exercise is probably the most important thing. I mentioned knowing what the job requirements are, but aside from that, this exercise is probably the most important thing you can do to prepare for any interview. This little simple sheet. And I believe in making interviewing easy, not complicated. I was telling a gentleman that you know, there are interview books out there that are like reading Webster's, you know, and interview is stressful enough. You don't need to be stressed. So I try to make it as simple as possible so that you can acquire everything, the knowledge, the tools, the tips you need easily, and then apply it. It doesn't have to be crazy. So, okay, what I want to ask is someone just share what one of their strengths is. There's nothing wrong, right? Yes?
Creativity.
Creativity, okay? Yes, sir?
Producing.
Producing. One more. Yes?
Research.
Research. Okay, now, by a show of hands, I want you to keep your hand up. I want everyone to just look around the room when we raise a hand, just a glance around. Who in here feels they are creative? Keep your hands up. Who in this room feels that they are a producer? They can produce things. Okay. Who in this room feels that they can do research? Okay. Most of the room raised their hands. Now, I'm an interviewer, and I've got one opening. Right? One opening. All of you are applying for that one opening. All of you are telling me you're creative, you're top producers, and you can do research. How in the world do I decide who I'm going to hire? You're all telling me the same thing. How do I decide? Anybody?
You ask more questions.
Ask more questions. But what do I need?
The resume.
I got your resume.
Back
Yeah.
up the statements.
You need an, I'm sorry.
Example.
You're cheating. You said this before. Yeah.
You need examples.
Examples. You need examples.
Yeah.
Now you remember, I am fearful, right? We agreed to that. Everyone's telling me the same thing. It's like dating. Everyone's telling you the same thing. I love you, I need you, I want you, I'll be great. Oh, I love you, I need you, I want you, I'll marry you. Everyone's saying the same thing. I'll be there for you, baby, I'll be there for you, I'll be there. Really? You know? So who do you believe? You believe the person that can back it up. Prove it to me. Make me feel comfortable. Eliminate my fear that you're one of a million people telling me the exact same thing. 9,999 of them, did I do that number right? Didn't, can't, won't do. So you hit it on the head. A supportive example. So I want everyone now, with your top three, to think of a specific supportive example that proves you have that ability you just said you have. And you do not have to write a dissertation. You can write 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, just as an example. It's really just to jog your memory of, I just said I'm very creative. Why am I very creative? Well, I design graphic arts for Smithsonian, and I'm the top graphic artist. Or I've been drawing since I was 5 years old, and or I've come up with projects and I've been recognized, whatever it is, give me a specific example, or list a specific example for each one. Now, let me stop everyone for a quick second. For the sake of time, I want you to list at least one for each of these three. What I want you to do, and I'll give you several minutes to do this. Longer term, I want you to list 2 or 3 specific examples for each one. Now, let me tell you why I want you to do that. Because, keep in mind, interviewer fear, I'm fearful. I need you to reassure me. You reassure me through examples. Okay? You give examples that you really have what you have and can do what you say. If I'm really fearful, I might ask you for an example, and you give me an example. But if I'm really fearful, I might say, well, give me another example. Because I'm really not sure. If you don't have another example, guess what? I don't believe you anymore. You can't come up with 2 examples of why you're creative? You're telling me you're creative? I don't believe you. And I might, on a rare occasion, ask you for a 3rd example. Not likely. So you have to be able to provide those examples and know them. Not stutter, not think about it on the interview. Think about it before the interview. And literally, here's the cool thing. This sheet, if I gave everyone 10 minutes and said, fill this out, you could fill this out. Now you can add to this, you can change it, you can have different sheets for different jobs so your strengths line up. But it can take you 10 minutes, and you can continue to add to it. And here's the beauty of it. You write this down, you read it once, and guess what? It's in here. It's that simple. And you could probably even slip it in your notepad if you need to check it on the interview to make sure you've covered everything when you're talking. But it's really simple. But it's 70% of what happens in your interview. Your success or failure of your interview is this. This is you. And if I have a job, I don't want to jump ahead. I'm going to stop there. So go ahead and list at least one supportive example for your strength. If you have time, list 2 or 3. I'll give you a few minutes. I'll give you another minute. And if for some reason you don't have all 3 done, that's okay. For now. Okay. And you can continue this later at home, over the weekend, next week. I encourage you to complete this, and minimally everyone should know their top 5 and top 10 greatest strengths. And one other thing, just to kind of put this in perspective of how significant it is. Interviews last anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half. In that time period, their interviewer is going to ask you a certain number of questions. If you do a top 10 list, and you have 3 supportive examples for each strength that you're bringing, and mind you, your strengths are lining up with the company's requirements. How many examples do you have? 30. Most likely, an interviewer is not going to ask you 30 questions. You'll have answers for everything because you've already lined them up with what's required, with your strength. And so this arms you with basically everything you need to answer the interviewer's questions. And you don't have to think about it. Be very fluent. And so it's beautiful. It's simple. It comes across really well, and it increases your confidence because you can walk in knowing I've got this, and I can support it. And one other thing is, whenever you are supporting your example, your strength, you should do it automatically. Now, you don't have to give 3 examples, but you should always link your strength with a supportive example automatically. So it's all in one sentence. Do not wait for an interviewer to say, well, prove that to me. Tell me. They may ask you to tell them more. But, for example, using my management experience, if I were to have this over again, is I'm a top sales manager. One of my strengths is management and sales leadership. For example, I won the President's Club 3 out of 5 years as a district sales manager. So I linked it. So you don't have to ask me. You don't doubt that I'm good sales manager because I just linked it for you. If I just say I'm a top sales manager, no supportive example, you're like, I don't know that you're a top salesman. You told me that, but I don't, But you link it in a very smooth flowing sentence or, statement. And it's very credible. And you've reassured them. Now, if they have a lot of doubts, they may say, well, what else have you done in sales that's been, okay, we'll give them some other examples. And I want to touch on something, because a lot of people say to me, well, I don't want to brag. I don't want to brag. Okay. If you are the fastest person in the world, and you're trying out for a track team, is it bragging if you just say I'm I've won every race I've ever had? Is that bragging or is that a fact? It's a fact. Now if you say I've won every race, but that's good. Now you're being a bragger. But stating a fact is not bragging, it's stating a fact. And if you don't state that fact, guess what? They don't know it. So don't get bragging mixed up with stating facts about yourself that are outstanding. Totally different things. You are obligated, for your sake and the company's sake, to state the facts about yourself that are outstanding. Because if you don't, not only do you not get a job, but they don't get a great employee because they don't hire you. So you're depriving them of talent and all the lives and things and people that you can touch and differences you can make. So it is critically important that you know it, you link it, you show it. Make sense? Okay, so who would like to share both their strength and one supportive example? Anybody? And there's nothing wrong, there's no wrong answers. There are better answers and answers that we can improve upon. If it's an answer we can improve upon, I will share with you how to improve upon it so that you have the best response for an interview. So you want your strength and supportive example. Anybody? Yeah.
Well, one of my strengths was works well with people of all ages, and then I put how I've worked with seniors, nursing home ministry, work with children in the children's ministry, not just limited to church, but that's what I use. And then working in the women's ministry. So that's just 3.
Excellent. No, that's
Different.
excellent. And that's it. You've got the concept. And so you want to mention your strength and share the supportive examples. Now you can take that a step further if you want and say something about the outcome of working in those ministries, and whatever it is that you've done, whatever the positive result was, and just link that as well. So that says, not only do I have the strength and I did it, but I did it really well. And you just put that together in a nice statement, and you've conveyed a very powerful, succinct message about yourself that starts to eliminate or certainly reduce the interviewer's questions and their fears about you. Remember? Less fear, more jobs. Okay, who else? Brave, bold volunteer. Anybody? Oh, come on. Maybe beg.
I won some awards in public speaking,
Okay,
and so I used to take a picture of my trophies with a handshake or whatever,
Okay.
and pictures worth 1,000 words. I just
Okay.
said, look, I've won several awards. Here's one of them, and it, you know, it's beyond a shadow of a doubt they believe it.
very good. There's something that I call a brag book, which is very helpful to put together. I talk about it in my book. But it's basically supportive documentation or information, pictures, letters of commendation, ranking reports, evaluations that are very favorable, that you can utilize or refer to, if you don't have it in front of you, to support yourself.
So would you take that on the interview?
Brag book?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, brag book is, it would be a, just FYI, you know, we talk about image and presentation and everything, even the little things, is you want to be dressed appropriately for an interview. And whatever you bring, resume-wise, notepad-wise, you don't want papers flying all over the place and show up in your interview, you know. Yeah, hi, yeah, hold on, yeah. Wait, yeah. You want a resume? Oh, wait, which resume do you want? Yeah. You don't want that. You want to show up nice, neat, clean, and well-organized. And so if you have a brag book, which is a very good idea, it supports what you're saying. It's not necessarily, it's not the trunk of the tree, it's the branches of the tree, you know. But it can be very helpful, and you would have it in a nice presentation format. You can get it bound at, it doesn't have to be super long, but it may have, it should include your resume, it would include some letters of commendation, like I said, evaluation reports, maybe letters of reference from customers. Anything else that is glowing representation of you, glowing, not average stuff, not poor stuff. Awards, pictures of awards, certificates, things like that, that you can present to say, you know, I was the top representative, or I was this or that, and here's my supportive information for it. Then you can also talk to that, because, and it's also not a bad idea to bring your brag book, and as you're talking, share some of those examples, because then they get a visual of what you're saying. Yes?
I don't know if we have any parents of young people who have not gone to college yet, or the parents. When you said that brag book, that's what the military, my son wants to get into the academy. And that's one of the things that the person that we're working with through the academy is having us do, build a brag book for him.
Yeah.
So that when he applies, they will see all the accomplishments, things he
Exactly,
has done.
exactly.
That will say to them, oh, this is the type of person we would
Yes.
love to have
Yes.
in our organization or whatever.
Yes.
So even for us as parents who have school-aged children, we can start building their portfolio.
Exactly.
Because it's an interview process
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great tool on the interview. It's also a great leave behind. So when the interviewer is then processing the 15, 20 people that they looked at, they've got your stuff. Like, oh, wow. Wow, yeah, this really is impressive. They talked about this. Now, again, it's not the crutch. You're not sitting there just talking the brag book. You, and by the way, brag book, quote unquote brag. You're not bragging, you're sharing your accomplishments. But it's a very effective means of making a very powerful impression. But it has to be done in a professional format, not a lot of loose papers. I would have it bound or in one of those professional presentation folders that you can get at Kinko's or FedEx, wherever, and neat and clean that you can present. And if you're interviewing with multiple people, make multiple copies so that you can leave one with each person and keep the originals yourself. Very effective, and I talk about that in the book, so you can read more about that. Okay. Another example. One more. One more?
What do you guys want?
Yes.
I had put down design and creativity.
Design and creativity, okay.
And my proof was at school, I had won an award for first place.
Outstanding. Excellent, you did it. That's great. Because that tells me you won an award for first place. You're the best.
That's right.
You're the best. That's what you just told me. Now, I may ask you more questions, but I would walk out of here and tell everybody that it was true. So that's what you want to do. That was perfect. That's beautiful. Good. Very, very good. Okay, so part 3 of your exercise is fairly simple. And I want to clarify a couple of things. Part 3 of your exercise is how do you apply that strength at this job you're interviewing for? If you read the job description and learn as much as you can about the company, And usually job descriptions have 5 to 10 points, key things that you need that they want. Link it. Make sure your strengths line up with those. Now, I want to share something with you that will also help you. A lot of people look at the job title and disqualify themselves. Like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not a director. Well, what does the director job require? Leadership, planning and organizing, whatever. But if you don't do that and they say it's too bad you're not a director, you're going to be like, you're right, but can you give me a chance? No, I can't give you a chance. I need someone that can do the job. So it changes your whole approach to opportunities that are out there, and it opens the door a lot wider than I think you realize. And I want to go back to the Melanie example that I gave of the person that didn't know how phenomenal she was in planning and organizing and administrative efficiency. I was able to tell Melanie how great she was. Other people that know you can tell you how great you are. We are all Melanies in something. There's somewhere where we're really good at something, but we've done it our whole lives, and so we take for granted that everybody does that, or that's not a big deal. But in that job, it's a big deal. And so ask your friends, ask your family, what do you see as some of my strengths? Write those down, ask them for examples, and include that as appropriate on your top strengths list. And you can have a list of 100 things. You don't have to stop at 10. And like I said, you can pick and choose according to the job that you are interviewing for. And you want to make sure, remember, knowledge of what you want and knowledge of the job, that the ones that you're sharing align with the requirements of that job. But definitely go to outside folks to give you additional insight on who you are. And the greatest thing about this is if you do this, if you do this today, matter of fact, do this today. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, look at what you wrote. And thank God for who you are. You will be amazed at who you're reading about. And if you didn't know it was yours, I guarantee you, everyone in here, you will be really like, this person is awesome. You will be very impressed with the person you're reading about. And doesn't that feel good? And then you can take that and present that to the world, to interview, to other people. If you're an entrepreneur, entrepreneurial things, just facing it changes your whole view because you know who you are and your value and what you're bringing. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So please, by a show of hands, who's committed to completing this evening? At least their first draft. Okay, awesome. Applause. Applause for that. You guys, that's good. Good. Okay, we got a little bit of time left, and I want to wrap up a few things. We are on fundamental rule number 4. Now imagine you are on a date, or you were on a date if you're currently married. And your date is sitting across the table from you at dinner, telling you everything you've ever wanted someone to tell you. They're telling you they love you. They're telling you how they see you as their lifelong partner, how happy they'll be. But they're saying it like this. I love you. I really believe we will be very, very successful. I can imagine years and years just us. You're like, right? They said everything you want to hear. But there was no enthusiasm. There was no passion behind it. It was just like, ugh. I don't think I want to spend all that time with you, you know? And so an interviewer is the exact same way. They respond to us. You are on an interview talking to a human being that has feelings and emotions, excitement. They want you to be the right one. Show some excitement. I would say, if you want a trip to Hawaii, which is my favorite place on the planet so far, the level of excitement that you would have about that trip is the level of excitement you should bring into an interview. I don't mean get up and dance on the table, and you know, but it's okay to smile, it's okay to let them know you're excited, Be excited. Don't sit there like a complete bump on the log. People, they're hiring your skill set, but they're hiring you. And just like you just kind of all said, well, I might disqualify somebody that was that, even if they were great, had the right job, all this, saying the right things, good. No, but there's no passion behind it. So show that, share that. It means the world. Matter of fact, enthusiasm can cover up a whole bunch of ills. It really can. Wow, that person is so passionate. This person has more skills and experience, but that person is so passionate. I think I can count on them to do anything. And so it sets you apart again. So keep that in mind. A positive attitude. Oh, excuse me. So enthusiasm is number 4. Fundamental rule number 4 is enthusiasm. Necessary enthusiasm, motivation, drive. Fundamental rule number 5 is a positive attitude. I cannot tell you how important this is on every level. And it doesn't just refer to me having a positive attitude about myself. It's, do I have a positive attitude in general about work, about life, about things I've done? Or am I bitter and angry? Who's been out ever in their life on a date with someone that's bitter and angry about their ex? That person, they're terrible. You don't really want to hear that. As a matter of fact, you're not thinking about their ex, you're thinking about them. Like, oh, you seem bitter and angry. And I don't know that I want that in my life. Companies will sometimes ask you, tell me about a manager you didn't like. It's a good question. Some people, they tell on their manager. It's okay if you didn't like somebody. We've all had that experience. But on an interview, when someone's asking you this is not a vent session. This is not your psychiatrist that you're talking to. This is someone that's making a decision on you. And they one day will be your manager. And if you bash that manager, their fear is you're going to bash me. You're done. You're out. So it's okay to express challenges that you face. And my suggestion is, so when someone's asking you for something negative, rather than talk about it as a negative, talk about, well, I had a manager that was challenging to work with. And here were some of the challenges, X, Y, Z, whatever they are. And here's how I worked through the challenges.
That's right. Absolutely.
So you're never saying I didn't like this person, even if you didn't. That's irrelevant. So it's, did you get the job done? Did you get along with them? I don't really care how you felt, Or did you dump on them, express it, become bitter and angry, stop performing, and quit or get fired because you were underperforming? So it's how you say it. Another question that people often get still, and it's been years and years, is, what's your greatest weakness? So they're asking you to tell them something negative about yourself.
Right.
So it's like, tell me why I shouldn't hire you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't just tell them everything. I had 2 candidate examples that one said, my desk at home is a mess. How do you think the employer felt about that? Another person said, I get really irritated when things don't go my way. Ooh, that's a... They were being honest.
Right.
Let me stop with that. You always want to be honest on an interview. But as my mother told me, you don't have to tell everybody everything. So you are in a position where you have to share your best. That's why if there's a typo on your resume, that's what you're telling them. My best is errors. You have to show your best. So if someone's asking you to tell you something bad about you, you kind of have to filter that and change it. Do you know why presidential candidates never come out and say what they've done wrong or where they've failed? Because that's all people would focus on. That's all you would, all of us, that's what we would focus on. The media would focus on. They wouldn't be able to get a word out edgewise. I'm going to give an example that's will illustrate this, and I have to do this because it will help you understand the significance of not saying anything negative about yourself. If you were shopping, you're going shopping, and you're shopping for a dresser. Who's ever shopped for furniture? Okay. Shop for a dresser. Now get the scenario. There are 2 dressers. Identical dressers in the store. Same color, same size, same shape, same price. The price is not negotiable. Everything works on them. Perfect. Except for one of the dressers has a little tiny nick on it. Brand new dresser. Which one do you buy? Okay. I've talked to thousands of people, And I've never had anyone choose the one with the nick. Never. I had one person say, well, negotiate the price on the nick. I was like, no, the price is not negotiable. I've never had one person say, I'll take the flawed one. Now, it's a nick in a dresser. The dresser is not, that doesn't affect the clothes, they all work. You step back 2 feet and you can't even see the nick. But you know it's there, right? It's like, that one's got a nick, that's flawed, I'm not bringing that into my house. And if you did buy it, you'd forget about it 2 weeks after you got it. But you won't buy it because of a little tiny nick. And that's human nature. It's not our fault, it just is. So, you can't put out one little dot of negativity about yourself because it's human nature to focus on it. And you could tell a million great things and tell my office at work is a mess, or sometimes I'm late, or you're done. You're done. You have just put the little nick on your resume to say, please don't hire me because I'm flawed. And so, understand what you're communicating and how you're communicating. So if someone says, what's your greatest weakness? Tell me something that's wrong with you. You have to change that. Now, to make this nice and simple, the best way to change that is to take something that you know is a strength. That's good about you, but it's a weakness from the standpoint of, I can't fight this. So let me give you an example. If a parent would do anything for their children, their weakness is their children. There's nothing I won't do to take care of my children. Well, if you're a kid, who doesn't want a parent like that, right? So that parent's weakness is really great for the kid. You want your weakness to be really great for the employer. So let's just say you're in customer service. My weakness are my customers. There's nothing I won't do to make sure my customers are taken care of. And if that means sacrificing dinner or a movie or something, I'm going to do it because I need to make sure my customers are taken care of. And you're applying for a director of customer service or customer service manager. That's a weakness. It's a genuine weakness. That they will say, I can use that weakness because that will make you a better person on my team. Does that make sense? Yes. And I don't care what they do. You are not there to spill stuff out on you that is not good. And sometimes they say, well, give me another one. Okay, come up with another one. But don't poison yourself. Don't put the fly in the ointment. And there's another question that's similar, like where have you tried your best but failed? Same question. Like where are you? Tell me why you're a failure. We've all tried our best at something and failed. There are two ways to answer that. One is, let's say you were the fastest person in the world, right? And you ran a race. Well, you're the fastest person in the world, so you won, right? But you wanted to win, you wanted to beat your time from last year. I failed to achieve my personal best in that last race. Your personal best, even your failure, was better than everyone else's success. That's a good example. You're asking me to say something negative. You're saying, well, the negative is I didn't do as well as I wanted to do, but I beat everybody else. So does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Another example, if you're talking about failure, is a real failure that you had, and I love using this example, and I'll share it, but it's a failure that you did a long time ago, and because of that failure, you became stronger in that area, and it made you a success. So the example I love is the Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I don't even know if this is true. So, if Arnold Schwarzenegger were a 50-pound weakling back in junior high school, and he tried a weightlifting contest, and the weight fell down, and he was embarrassed. And as a result of that, he said, that will never happen to me again. Right? And so Arnold gets trainer, starts working out every week, and he becomes Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, that's a failure that made him someone great. And there are lots of real-life examples that are like that, where the failure made you better. That is where you can use a failure. But the end solution or the end result that you're sharing with is, today, I'm great because of that failure. Not, my failure was yesterday, and I hope tomorrow I don't fail. Failure was a long time ago, and it made me a better person. So you don't want to use something too recent because you haven't had time to demonstrate that you've overcome it. Make sense? Okay. So that's where the positive attitude comes. There are two more, which I can wrap up fairly quickly, but I do need, do these seats move? I want a volunteer. This requires no talking. So who? I'll pick somebody. I will. I'll do it. Who would like to volunteer? All you have to do is sit down. Really. Thank you. What's your name? What's your name? Trinity. Stewart.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, Trinity, have a seat. Okay, fundamental rule number 6 is communication. Communication, there's verbal communication, there's physical communication. The communication is critical. Listening is important. How you say, what you say, body language is important. So I want to just show something on body language. We talk about this, I talk about this in the book, so it'll give you more illustrative examples. But in terms of body language, we often do not realize what we're putting out there. If you've ever, and this happened to me recently, which was interesting, I'm like, wow, people just aren't smiling anymore. I've been going through a bunch of stuff lately. And I stopped and I was like, walked along one day and I had a good day and I smiled at someone and they smiled back. I was like, wow, people are smiling now. Well, it was me. I wasn't smiling, so nobody else was smiling. But you got to know what you're putting out there. You think it's all them. It's like, well, it starts with you, right? And so we do lots of things, from eye contact to handshake. And I'm going to do, I'll probably do this at the end. But there are things that we do that communicate more powerful messages visually than even what we are speaking.
Yes.
I know you've all heard of that, but I don't know whether we always think about it. From your handshake to your eye contact, you realize the first thing after they see you, first they see you, so they see how you're dressed, they see your posture, they see whether you're comfortable or not, they see what you're communicating when you're sitting waiting there. Are you playing games on your cell phone? Are you talking to your friend on the phone like, hey, what's up? What are you doing? You're communicating. And keep in mind, your interview starts from the time you click send. So certainly when you're sitting in front of them in the waiting room that looks empty, you need to act as if someone's watching. Okay, so you're always communicating. Eye contact. If you're uncomfortable, practice. Because you got to look someone in the eye when you're talking to them, and you got to look someone in the eye when you shake their hand. And when you shake their hand, your hand has to have some body to it. I had a guy that I talked to on the phone for several months as a recruiter, and brought him into my office finally to actually meet him. And I liked him on the phone. And he came in, and I shook his hand, and I didn't even know it was there. It was just kind of like,
Wow.
I was like, is that a sponge? Did I miss? It was like, I didn't know, there was no response, there was no tension. And I don't mean bringing someone down to their knees. This is not a power competition. This isn't Arnold Schwarzenegger handshake, But you have to have, that represents you, that defines you. Women or men. And so sometimes guys try to strong arm someone, sometimes women try to strong. Just a professional shake, and I would like to, when I sign your book, shake everybody's hand. And I'd like everyone to shake each other's hand. Matter of fact, take a quick second, stand up. Face each other. I want you to say, here's what I want you to do. Just say, hi, it's nice to meet you. Shake their hand, and then sit back down.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
All right, that's enough. A couple of things. You all probably had some good tension there, because I talked about it. But when you shake someone's hand, basically this part connects with this part. I don't even know what this part is called, but you connect up, and you don't want to get the end. That happened to me the other day. I shook someone's hand, and I didn't get it, and they got here, and I was like, oh, they must think I don't know how to shake hands. So you want to be deliberate and shake properly. Right, perfect. So that is important because that defines you, whether you know it or not. Before you sit down, you've just communicated a message. I'm confident or I'm not confident. And it's interesting because various cultures have different handshakes. But if you're interviewing in this country, you have to know the handshake because otherwise you're communicating weakness, insecurity, a whole bunch of other things. And even people within this country don't always handshake properly. So it's important to know that because you are communicating. Other thing, posture. I talked about just standing posture. Sitting posture is important. What I want you to do is sit back, just sit back. Sure. Okay, so my candidate is sitting here. Now, I want you to also now sit forward. Okay, sit back. Oh, no, just lean back. Sit forward. Just lean forward. Do you see the difference? Okay, just lean back. Don't just yeah. Sit back. Lean forward. Okay. This communicates to me engagement and interest. Just lean back.
Yes.
This communicates she's thinking about Hawaii. Right? And it's a few inches. And I tend to sit back. That's my comfortable posture. And I have to remind myself if I'm in a meeting or with people that are making decisions about my life that I sit forward. Because no matter how engaged I am otherwise, my body is saying, you're not really here. And I've had managers, literally, say to me, I had one candidate that was awesome, just awesome candidate. I knew she was going to ace her interview. She goes on it, she comes back, I said, how'd it go? She's like, it went great, blah, blah, blah. The manager calls me and he said, I'm not going to be moving forward with so-and-so. And I was like, what? I said, why? He said, first of all.
Oh, that means others.
She was back in her chair. That was his first comment. And when I relayed this to her, she's like, I was just trying to show him I was comfortable. That's not what it showed him. So you have to know what you're communicating. I want to show you, so thank you, stand up, I want to show you one other thing.
Okay.
So make sure, the bottom line answer to that is your back should never hit the back of the chair as long as you're sitting. That way you know you're sitting properly. If your back's leaning up there, lean forward. Okay? And it's just a little bit, and it makes a huge, huge difference. Practice it. You're at the doctor's office, just practice it. And then just remember, do this on the mirror. Now stand here, just so I can do this properly.
Facing you?
Yeah, facing me. Okay. So, actually, stand right here. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to be the candidate. You're going to be the interviewer. Face me. Now I'm going to exaggerate this the first time just to get it across, but I want you to see something and tell me what you think. Okay. So it's the end of the interview. I've done really well. And I'm saying goodbye to the interview. I'm done. Done everything except for say goodbye, get in my car, and drive home. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah, great to talk to you. We're going to do it again.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you. What did I do?
Eye contact.
No eye contact.
Oh, eye contact. What else?
First the interview.
Brushed up. Brush her off. Did you feel brushed off?
Yeah,
Okay, this is bad, right? And it's just a role play. So think about how she would feel in real life if I did that or even anything close to that. And here's, I'm going to do it in more realistic so you can see it. But I did it slightly exaggerated so you could really see it. But thanks so much. Nice to meet you.
And the handshake wasn't fun.
Okay. So there were several things that happened. And all of them offended her. So, and I'll share with you what they were. But basically, I could have had a really great interview and done that at the very end, the last split second of my interview, and left her with a bad taste in her mouth. If you don't shake someone's hand and look them in the eye, first of all, it conveys insincerity. Insincerity. So it makes them wonder, was everything else this person said true or not? Whereas a good handshake and good eye contact will seal it. Like, everything they said was good. They shook my hand, they looked me in the eye. What I did, besides blow past her, was I shook her hand, and before I broke hand contact, I broke eye contact. Now that's a fraction of a second. So I did this. Very nice to meet you. And I started to walk away. Now notice, I haven't disconnected here. This may sound like a small thing, but it's huge. And you will notice this in everybody after this moment. Is before I break eye contact, I finish my handshake. Very nice to meet you. Thank you. Take care. And then I walk away. That split second conveys that I'm sincere or I'm not. Split second. And I'll bet you with some of you, you all broke eye contact. I do it sometimes if I'm not thinking about it. But you have to think about these things because it's conveying very powerful information to your interviewer about you. So the way to do it properly, it's very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for your time. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Now I leave. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you. Give her a hand. I want everyone to stand one last time. Do that same thing again. Do it the way we just discussed it. Very nice to meet you. Thank you for your time. Or very nice to meet you. Shake hands and stop. Make sure you have eye contact and handshake.
Very nice to meet you. I will see you at home.
Very nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, that's right. Very nice to meet you. I'll take you to the restaurant.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, we're good. We're good. That was excellent. Was that better? A little better? Did it work? Did you see what I was talking about? It makes you feel better when someone does that.
Yes.
It makes you feel important when someone does that. And think about that. You're making the interviewer feel better and important at the end of a great interview. The last fundamental is compatibility with the interviewer. And that, if you do the first 6 fundamentals, you're kind of going to do very well on that. Kind of blending communication and compatibility. Smiling is very important. Being yourself is important. If you find that you're not compatible with the interviewer, and that is the hiring manager, meaning the person you're going to work for, pay attention to that. Because work isn't a very good place if you're miserable.
Exactly.
And it's just not. I've been in situations both sides of the fence. It's miserable. So pay attention. Am I compatible with this person? Did I feel compatible? And did I relate to them as well as did they relate to me? If the person that you're interviewing with that you don't feel compatibility with is not the hiring manager, just a gatekeeper to the company, you need to make that compatible.
That's right.
Fake it till you make it. You know? And because they're just a gatekeeper. And I've had people have their initial interview with somebody that's not going to be their manager. They didn't like it. Like, I kind of gave up halfway through the interview. You never give up halfway through any interview. Ever, 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 ever. If you're there, you give it 100% from the moment you get there to the moment you get to your house. And if you decide, I don't want this, decide it in between interviews. Do not decide it on an interview because there are too many things that can change and you learn something different. So let's say you meet someone, you really don't like them, so you're like, screw this, yeah, I did that, yeah. So you're not even engaged in the interview. You leave because it wasn't the hiring person, and later you find out that is the hiring person. Or you find out that that person that you was the hiring person isn't going to be the manager anymore, someone else is going to, but they've already said to the company, I don't want this person. So you want to always leave a very positive message and communicate a very positive message. So those are the 7 fundamentals. If you understand those, and I talk about those in the book in greater detail, you will be in a really great position to do very well. And if you do the greatest strengths exercise, which we all committed to doing, you will be in a very good position to feel confident about yourselves, go out there and know you are going to win, because you got it in you, and you know you have it in you. And it changes how you approach everything. It really, truly does, I promise. And I know and I wish and I pray that everyone here has the most successful job experience that they possibly can, from interview on past. And I know that you will do very well. In summary, I want to say a few things. I want to tell everyone that I have a Twitter handle. It's called GetTheJob123. It's on the bottom of your interview seminar sheet, agenda. It's GetTheJob123. If I had time, I'd give it a monetary award for the first person that gets on their phone and signs up. But we don't have time. I wanted to let everyone know about other services that I offer. I am a recruiter by trade. I love to write, so I'm in the process of writing some other books as well. But I also do interview coaching, one-on-one and group interview coaching. So if anyone is in a situation where they need one-on-one interview coaching, it's something that is a service that I provide. I would give anyone a special rate that's from crossover. So if you have a need, it's been very helpful, particularly if you've been on the market for a while and like, wow, what's going on? We can kind of customize this dialogue to your specific situation, really help you get on point, and it's helped everybody that I've spoken with. I do resume writing, cover letter writing, thank you letter writing and assistance as well. So if you need help in those areas, I'll be happy to help that as well. I want to thank everyone here, and thank you, Pastor Tanya, for making this possible today.
Yes, thank you.
Crossover, I love you. And I am here to answer any questions. If you have any group questions, I can do that for a few minutes. It is 12, so I promised I would wrap this up at noon. But then I'll be here afterwards to sign any copies of books and
And I'm
answer.
gonna be passing the
Okay,
books out now
wonderful.
while people will have.
And if you have questions while I'm signing books, probably best to hold your questions until I finish signing, so I can get through everybody. People that need to leave can leave, and then I can answer your questions. But are there any immediate questions that people have? Yes?
Is it inappropriate to wear braids to a job interview now?
Braids like what? Is what you could, I'm terrible with
If it
hairstyles.
was newly done? Like
I
braids
don't-
for
I don't think so.
African American hairstyle?
No, I don't think so. My suggestion is try to find out what the culture's like
Yes.
and dress the part. Stepping it up a notch, never down a notch. It's better to be overdressed and more made up, and I don't mean too much makeup, I just mean appropriately done up versus less so. I would rather see someone walk into in a business suit to McDonald's than walk in shorts, you know? So people don't reject you because you're well dressed. They'll reject you if you're underdressed or out of line. I generally tell people if they have a lot of hair, when you're going to an interview, depending on the culture, you may want to pull it back so that it's more controlled for the interview. You know, you got to get in the door, and you don't want someone distracted by something. You know, if you wear big hoop earrings,
Yes.
that's fine. I wouldn't wear them on an interview because that's what they're going to be looking at.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you have a tattoo or something, and it's an important interview where someone could judge you based on your tattoo, cover it if you can cover it, because that's what they're going to be looking at. And you want the focus to be on you and your strengths, not your tattoo or your earrings or your hair. You know, you want them to see you as a professional image, but not be focusing on any one particular thing.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
Anything else?
What
Yeah,
do-
yes.
What do they look for, when you mentioned that they actually look on your Facebook page? Do they just look at your profile? What is it that they look for in the Facebook, you know?
Okay, a couple of things. If you looked at someone's Facebook page, you get an impression immediately. Friend, family, or people you don't know. So it's not even necessarily that they're looking for something specific. They're looking for an impression.
Right.
What's my impression of this person? And if the impression is they're out there, I might not want you for my job.
Well said.
So how do you minimize that? You take off anything that could be misperceived as non-professional, anything. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have a family shot or something like that, you know, that's okay, you know, on Facebook. But nothing that's unprofessional, that someone could say, what is that, you know? Your Club Med vacation or whatever, you know, just you don't want anything that's gonna make them think otherwise. LinkedIn, which is the more of a business site, and people can check any one. Suggestion is that you have a professional picture. It doesn't have to be a professional photographer, but just a professional picture. If you're interviewing in the professional world, it's a good idea to look professional. You can change it later if you want to change it later. Some people have ties, some people don't. Again, I go back to you want to make the best impression that you can, and the first impression is the lasting impression. And so people that don't put their pictures up, a lot of times people wonder, why don't they have a picture? You know, and it actually causes them to think, why is there not a picture when everyone else has a picture? So put a picture up, you know, and just try to, in one sense you want to conform so that you're not standing out negatively. And in another sense you want to be yourself. So I hope that kind of helps put it in perspective. Yes?
Well, thank you. This is a great seminar you're giving here.
Awesome.
I'm so happy you came. Thank you for the book as well.
Absolutely.
I'm currently in the job market, and it's wonderful. I saw statistics, like I like the emails from Monster and Career Builders and stuff, but they said it's just hot right now for all kind of fields. What I'm doing is I've had 2 great interviews, and I want to know something that I didn't talk to anybody about, because it's something I think is okay, but you can tell me this.
Sure.
I've been evaluated on my current job, and they gave me a PDF, and I printed it out. I've emailed and I've given that to recruiters. Is that okay?
Absolutely, it's a good evaluation, I trust.
It's one of the best ones I ever had.
Absolutely.
So I just want to make sure.
That's like the
I
brain.
don't know if it was appropriate. Nobody told me anything, so I can ask you because you're a manager.
Yeah.
You know what's credible and what's not.
It's very okay.
But that's what I've been doing.
You're supplementing your qualifications with proof,
Thank you.
and that's good. It's very good.
Thank you.
Excellent. And I wish you every success.
Thank you.
Yes, you had a question.
At the end of the interview, they asked you, do you have any questions for us, or is this the time to ask them about benefits, are your benefits what I want, this type of thing? Really tell them the questions that are really on your mind.
Okay, couple things. So that's a great question. Before your interview starts, you should prepare a list of 5 or so questions. So you've thought some good questions, and not, what do you do? Stuff you can look up and research. You don't want to ask basic questions like that because it shows I didn't do any homework on you. So do your homework, and you will come up with some questions. Oh, I understand that one of your competitors does this. How do you handle that? How do you market that? So that you're asking. So first, in terms of questions, you're asking questions that show I've done some homework and research. In terms of questions about benefit, then you prioritize your questions, because you'll have a certain amount of time. Usually at the end of an interview, people say, "Do you have any questions?" I asked the candidate this once, and they pulled out a list of like 500 questions. And they started to ask me all these questions. Mind you, I liked them before this. She went on and on and on for like an hour. And by half an hour, I was like, I don't want you anymore. I really did. She just had no sensitivity or consideration. And so she actually ruled herself out by just having no connection, that this was too much. So you want to prioritize your questions so you can ask 2 or 3, if you have time, questions. And if they invite more and you have time, maybe more, but usually anywhere from a couple to 5 questions is it. Benefits question. Depends on when your interview is and what phase you are in the interview process. I'm going to use a dating analogy. You're on a date. Yes, exactly. You're on a date, and this person, like, they're talking, everything's great. And at the end of the day, like, how much money are you making? That's a fair question to have in your head, because if you're thinking marriage or whatever, can we survive? You have, but you can't just ask that question. And you certainly can't ask it too early. So some of that you can find out on the website or talking to HR or whatever to get the information. You should gather as much information as you can about a company beforehand so that you know this is a company that fits. Is the salary range, if you can find that out, in line with what I want? You don't need to waste your time going on an interview that can't pay you what you want, or their time, So, but that is an important question to find out, but I would prioritize it, and if they get down to everything else is lining up in the interview, and you have not been able to get that information, and they'll say, hey, we'd like to make you an offer. Okay, well, you need to know that before I'm very excited. By the way, whenever you get an offer, first thing you should show is fundamental rule, number, what number? 4. Enthusiasm. No matter what. Show your enthusiasm. Thank you I am so excited about this. I did have one other question for you, though. Is it possible you can share with me I'm very interested in this. Could you share with me what the benefit information is? So you're preceding with, you got me, I'm interested. You can always say no later if they tell you that it's terrible. Like, well, sorry, I can't, But let them know your enthusiasm, your interest, and then ask that question. Yes?
Is it good to go back to that interviewer or that employer that you didn't get the job, so you can get pointers from them?
If they'll give it to you. I mean, as a manager, I occasionally would tell someone, hey, here's my suggestion for you. I usually didn't have time to do that. And if someone were to call me afterwards, I probably would do it if I had time. But you just don't always have time to do that. So I wouldn't feel pressed to do it. I think when you read the book, in all sincerity, you'll know what you did wrong. You really will. You'll be like, oh, I didn't do that. Oh, I didn't do this. People tell me that all the time. It's like, oh, I forgot to do that. Oh, I forgot to write a thank you letter. By the way, when do you write a thank you letter? Within an hour of your interview. Not next week, not 2 weeks, My suggestion is, as soon as you leave the interview, you go to a business center, type it up, professional format, attach it to their email, get their email, of course, and send it to them. Why? Because if an interviewer is interviewing 10 people,
That's right.
they usually, by the end of the day, make the decision on which ones they're moving forward. If you're neck and neck with somebody, and they get your thank you letter next week, they already made their decision. If you're neck and neck with somebody and you get your thank you letter and they don't get the other person, guess who just bumped into first place? And I've had managers tell me repeatedly, I didn't get a thank you. They noticed. And they usually don't get thank yous, just FYI. Most of my candidates do thank yous, but they notice. And it sets you apart because it's something everyone does not do. Yes, yes.
Along with the body language, is there any kind of speaking technique along with that?
Yeah. My general philosophy in terms of just of communication is to firstly, be yourself. If you are soft-spoken, practice talking a little more firmly, projecting. Because if you're too soft-spoken, it makes it seem like you're not really comfortable with what you're saying, even if you are. So you want to make sure you project. I'm projecting. I don't talk like this normally. So you want to project. The other thing that's good, if you're talking with an interviewer that's talking really fast, try to talk a little faster than you would. Now, don't get out of your comfort zone, but just maybe pick it up just a little bit, a little more excitement. If you're talking to an interviewer that's talking really slowly, and you tend to talk really quickly, try to slow it down a little bit. Again, don't get out of your comfort zone, but you're kind of mimicking and mirroring the interview, you know, and it makes them more comfortable. So I hope that answers that question. Yeah? Okay. Anything else? Yes?
So if they are talking fast and they're giving you information, but you're not actually getting everything they're saying because they're speaking so fast, and
slow down! What are you doing? What do you think, I'm a computer? That's what you say. No, okay.
and then in like in some situations, they might say, well, we do kind of a pre-screening in the first interview, but if we like you, we're going to call you back for a second interview with someone else. So how do you kind of gauge like what questions to ask that first interview? We leave out salary and the benefits.
Depends on the first interview. If the first interview is HR or somebody, can you give me an idea of the pay range? Because somebody that's not making the decision, they're just calling you to let you know about, if you haven't found that. But in terms of questions, my philosophy, and I talk about questions, asking questions and answering questions in the book in detail. Again, questions depend on where you are in the interview process. If you should come to the table with questions that you've gained based on your research, whatever that is. As you say, you need to know what they're saying about you. So there are several approaches. One is, there's a common term out now, it's called job ended, meaning my job ended. I don't like that because it leaves me with a whole lot of questions. What do you mean it ended? How did it end? Who ended it? The reality is we can be terminated. There are a lot of people who have been terminated and found really, really great jobs. If you are comfortable, you can describe the scenario behind the termination. If you can get around discussing the termination and say, well, here's what I did here, and then I moved to this job, like if you went back-to-back jobs because of what the value was in this job and leave out the termination, I would do that. You don't want to put out there, oh, by the way, I was fired. That's not something that you want to put on the banner. But if it's addressed or you're asked about it, you kind of have to say, well, we came to a mutual agreement that this wasn't the best opportunity for me. But part of that is, what can they find out? And if you can get away with not talking about it, I would try to get away with that. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Now, the several fundamentals apply when interviewing across the board, but are there things to avoid when you're having a telephone interview versus face-to-face?
Anything specific? I mean, you want to avoid background noise?
Is there any different,
A telephone interview and a face-to-face interview are very similar.
Okay.
The cool news is you can have your greatest strength sheet right in front of you, so you don't have to hide it from anybody. They're very similar. The challenge with it is you don't have facial feedback and body language feedback on either side, so you just got the voice. So one of the things that you want to make sure that you're doing is that your voice is communicating all the energy and enthusiasm, because that's all they have to go by. And what happened the other day? Oh, I had a candidate 2 days ago. Manager had face-to-face interview with the guy. He went to the next level, interviewed with her manager, who's the most difficult person in the world to get past, aced it with her. And so the manager was going to call my candidate up to offer him the job. So she calls him up to offer him the job. And she said, well, I'd like to, move you forward in the process. And so she's telling him this. And she calls me, and I was sure she was going to call me and say, hey, offer him the job. He's really excited. She said, Stuart, I don't think I'm going to offer him this job. And I was like, what had happened? You were calling him to offer him the job. She said, he had no enthusiasm. I told him about the job, and he was just kind of like, okay, And I sat there and I was like, how did this guy's been like so excited. How did this happen? I mean, he's been calling me every day for 2 weeks about this job. He aced his interview with her, and I was like, I said, was he at work? What was happening?
Right.
So she said, I don't know where he was, but I have serious concerns. And I get it, I get that. Well, I called him. This is what he told me. He said, Stuart, I've been counting on this job. I mean, for my family. He said, this job means more than anything in the world. He said, I started crying. This is what he told me. I started crying, and I didn't want her to know I was crying. So I tried to contain myself, and I don't know if the guys in here know, you don't want to be crying and bawling, you kind of want to check that, right? And so to check it, you just kind of have to withdraw, otherwise it's going to all pour out. So that's what he did. And so, but she didn't know it. So you have to be very cognizant. And I told him, I said, it would have been better for you to break out crying and say, I am so, seriously, I am so excited. Because that's all they have to go by. And so that's probably the biggest difference. And the other side is make sure there are no distractions, no dogs barking, no kids. It is not an excuse to have your dog barking. It is not an excuse if your kid runs in 5. Not an excuse. You might think it's an excuse. It's an annoyance. And you can get disqualified quickly. Like, this person didn't have enough respect to, yes.
So, my senior VP was last year advertised for a position, and the secretary told me that a gentleman lived in Virginia. She was scheduling the interview, and he wanted to do it over the phone, and the senior VP wanted him to come in. He said, I'm having his work done. So they was willing to work around any day for him to come in, but he wanted to do the interview over the phone.
The candidate.
The candidate. He didn't want to come in. So he lost the job just by not being, right? They tried to work with him, and so I was like, did he come in? They said we never scheduled it.
Yeah, and they shouldn't have, because he showed no initiative, no enthusiasm. It's another thing, and I could talk all day, and I'm gonna wrap it up in literally 2 minutes. You have to show you're engaged. You have to show that dating analogy. You have to show them that they matter. And I will jump through a hoop to show you that it matters. And so if they say, can you have an interview tomorrow or next week?
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Unless there's here's my 2 things. 2 reasons to miss an interview. A wedding or a funeral, both your own. Last question, and then I'm going to side book so everyone can get on their merry way. Anybody else?
I have one more.
Yeah.
Would you address people who have major gaps in their resumes?
Yes.
Yeah, would you address that?
Firstly, there have been a lot, if anyone's been a victim of downsizing, that's sadly our culture lately. So you get kind of a little reprieve more often than not today if you've been a victim of a downsizing. If you just quit and you didn't work anywhere else, people start to wonder about your motivation level, et cetera, et cetera. My suggestion, if there are gaps in your resume, is that you want to explain what you were doing. Was I sitting around on the sofa? Or was I being productive? Did I get involved in entrepreneurial things? Did I help charity? Did I do this? Did I research? Did I interview? What was I doing during that time that was productive and moving me forward and doing something? It's people that are sitting around doing nothing that shows I'm not really motivated. Hire me. It's not going to work. So that's what I would do in that scenario. And I would make a point to try to do things in between employment, including interviewing, because I ask people, hey, so you haven't been employed since last year, what have you been doing? And if they say, well, traveling, that's nice, but I don't want you, tell me something that you did that, well, I was traveling to help people in, other countries. Okay, that's productive. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, thank you all. I will sign books and shake everybody's hand. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. I'll look for everyone. Is it really? Oh, what's your name? There you go. You're welcome. Hi.
I'm Demetrius.
Hi, Demetria. Pleasure. Nice to meet you as well. Spell it for me.
D-E-M-I-T-R-I.
D-E-M.
E-T-R-I.
Got it.
Okay.